Mamod traction engine restoration and upgrade, part 2, paint removing and cleaning. In this video I'll be going through the processes I've used to get the parts back to bare metal and ready for painting. So let's get into it. First I turn on my ultrasonic cleaner to get it warming up. With that underway, I'm going to soak most of the painted parts in lacquer thinner. This loosens and weakens the paint. An ice cream container probably isn't an ideal utensil for this job, so we'll get something more fit for purpose in the future. This is reasonably nasty stuff, so do what you can to not get any on your skin. I have both of the garage doors open, so I have plenty of ventilation, and I will be leaving these parts outside in the shade while I'm in the garage, as there are health warnings about breathing in the vapour. I'm going to let this soak for 24 hours. Lacquer thinner will evaporate pretty quickly if left uncovered, so that's what the lids are for. For the cylinder, which is solely made of brass, albeit with a bit of solder, I soak it in white vinegar. You'll see I get the air out of the inside of the cylinder, so it cleans inside as well. White vinegar evaporates too, so I cover it as well. For the front axles and wheels, I'm also going to use vinegar to clean the surface, and see if it harms the already flaking paint. The steel is nickel plated, and it seems to be okay to mix these two in vinegar. You can make a simple battery using old copper coins, tin foil, and cardboard soaked in vinegar, so vinegar must have some electrical property. I found this out once when soaking brass and steel parts at the same time in the same container. I left it for 2 days, and when I came back all the brass had a black iron coating on it, which did mostly wipe off, but it stained the brass a bit, and it was very hard to get all the iron out of all the nooks and crannies, like in the threads. For this reason, parts like the whistle, safety valve and piston, which are all made of brass and steel, will get the ultrasonic treatment. An ultrasonic cleaner uses a high frequency sound wave to agitate a liquid, in this case water, which effectively shakes off any contaminants on surfaces submerged in the liquid. With that going, I'm going to show you a rust removal method called electrolysis. For this you need a container of water, an impurity, in my case sodium carbonate, or washing powder as it's also known, sacrificial steel anodes, a low voltage power supply, and some wire. Start by putting water into the container deep enough to submerge your parts. Then add your impurity. Water on its own is not conductive, it's the impurities in the water that conduct electricity. Adding washing powder will allow the electricity to flow through the water easier, which is what we want. You can use salt instead, but this will give off chlorine gas during the electrolysis process, so you'll really want some good ventilation. Or my advice, just use washing powder, all that gives off is hydrogen. It was pretty cold in my garage. The water here is probably only a few degrees Celsius. Normally the washing powder dissolves before it hits the bottom of the container. The red wire will be positive, which is my anodes, or sacrificial metal. One goes on each end of the container. The black wire will be negative. This attaches to the part you want to remove rust from. There isn't much rust on the canopy, but hopefully you'll see the result all the same. Now we just want a few volts. Most people seem to cut up an old phone charger. I'm using a model train controller. You can tell if you have the polarity the right way around. If you see little bubbles forming on the part, you have it the right way. The bubbles are hydrogen from the rust, so you'll get a nice little pop if you touch them with a flame.
24 hours later.
Well, that appears to have worked. Time to take it out of the water. You should probably wear gloves for this. The layer of rust that forms on the surface of the water really stained my skin and took days to wash off. Not days of continuous washing, but you know what I mean. A cool side effect of this is that it seems to loosen the paint. Look at the paint now. The rust is still there, for now, but now it's loose on the metal. Time for the wire brush. You'll see the wire brush scrubs off the rust and leaves the bare metal, which has been blackened in the process. I'm not sure why this happens. I'm sure some science nerd in the comments will tell you. The first 15 minutes of ultrasonic cleaning didn't seem to do much, so this has now had a total of 45 minutes. The parts are definitely cleaner, but certainly aren't amazing. I might be misunderstanding the purpose of ultrasonic cleaning. Now we remove the painted parts from the lacquer thinner. They have been soaking for around 24 hours now. I have 2 containers of water ready to rinse off the parts as they come out. I'm still quite new to this whole video making thing, so my attention is a bit divided between what I'm doing and making sure I'm keeping in frame. You'll notice my lack of attention now as I tip a smoke box full of lacquer thinner into the water. And now, when I do exactly the same thing with the boiler. Putting the parts in the water may have been a mistake, as the paint isn't all that keen on coming off. In this shot you can see the lacquer thinner sitting on top of the water. This started to burn my hand after a couple of minutes, so be aware of this. Next time I'll try wire brushing the parts in the lacquer thinner, with gloves and plenty of ventilation of course. I've got another idea for now anyway, more on that soon. As for the parts soaking in white vinegar, they have definitely cleaned up nicely, and the paint even seems to want to come off in flakes, which suits me just fine. After filming yesterday, I removed the leaf spring from the axle as it's made of brass, and put another front axle in there for nothing to do with this video. The cylinder has cleaned up nicely as well. Interesting side note, tomato sauce works well as brass polish. So the lacquer thinner didn't really work for me, but that was probably more likely me not doing it quite right. I have a faster solution for now anyway, paint stripper. This is a thick liquid that gets applied to the paint you want to strip, and wants to be applied relatively thick. It then gets left for 10 to 15 minutes to act, and then the paint comes off with little effort. The can says the paint will reharden after 15 minutes, so I wonder if the lacquer thinner did a similar thing. 24 hours may have been too much. Much better, but still far from finished. The majority of the paint that's left is flaking off, or at least very weak. Now that the paint is weak, I'm going to try the lacquer thinner again, but this time just let it soak for an hour, mainly because I'm running out of daylight, and I don't want to do this indoors. Again, the vapour is pretty nasty. And just in case you didn't believe I was running out of daylight, here is the video showing me running out of daylight. It was worth it though. I'd call this 98% of the paint removed, just stubborn little pieces or hard to get to places left. Just for science, let's try vinegar on the remaining paint and let it soak for 24 hours. Unfortunately, it didn't work. But what about ultrasonic cleaning, the method that's supposed to obliterate anything that isn't parent material? Again, unfortunately no. In fairness, I could probably remove the remaining of the paint with some patient emery clothing and wire brushing, but I'm going to take the lazy option, vapor blasting. A company I use does vapor blasting. This is their machine. Vapor blasting uses mostly water mixed with very fine glass beads in a pressurized stream to remove most foreign matter such as rust and corrosion, although not paint, and bringing the metal up to a satin finish. The water cushions the impact of the glass beads, so the damage to the surface is virtually immeasurable. A good example of this is the fact you can vapor blast engine blocks without plugging any threads or bores. Most companies that offer vapor blasting probably also offer paint stripping and other finishing services, so just ask. And now the finished product. By now you've probably realised why I got it vapor blasted. Look at that finish. All the metals get brought up to a satin finish, which would otherwise probably take me quite a few hours with emery cloth and Scotch-Brite. Or for around $100 I can get someone else to do it with excellent results. Some might call this lazy, but I think it's just efficient. I have many other things I'd rather be doing than polishing metal. So there you have it. Not the most exciting episode in the series, but from here on is where the modification, painting and reassembling begins, so that should be a little bit more exciting. Stay tuned for that. I am sorry it's taken so long to make this video. 6 months is pretty unacceptable. Thank you for all the support so far, and hopefully part 3 won't take as long to make. Thanks for watching.